and which is true. That exists. Now, the more sophisticated souls, the more developed souls, they rise to a higher level. The transcenders are at the highest level, but they're not only from the third dimension. There are souls there. Well, Abraham, the original leader and of the Jewish people, and there was Peter the Apostle, another. Yeshua was another one, so forth. But there were all of them were great military leaders, great political leaders, not only here but on other planets and this sort of thing. So they have all this wealth and of knowledge on one thing and another. But the thing that they told me, which is very important to understand and to accept, is that at this subconscious level of the soul, we actually exist in three separate parts. Our conscious soul is here on Earth. Our subconscious is in what you call heaven and nirvana, whatever you want to call it. And then there's the astral realm, which is where there's the superconscious is. And at that level, they are non-separate. That's a hard thing for us to understand. They're like a pebble on the beach or a drop of water in the ocean. Now, is that so? Nothing that takes place in the universe they do not know of. So when I asked them, for example, I says about Denver. I wanted them to send the UFOs on a display over Denver because Jeff Peckman, I think you know.
Sure,
Jeff,
I know Jeff.
Yeah, and he was having this petition to the council about that. And so I begged the transgender, says, you talk, you communicate with the Pleiadians and all the other agents. Tell them about my concerns. And this is okay, Stan. Look, we can't tell them what to do because of free will and choice. We can't tell them what to do, but we'll pass on your request. And then they came back a few days later, and I guess they weren't going to do it, and they gave the reasons I'll just mention this. I think it's quite important. They said that no, the aliens would not do so because of the political influence on the city politics. That would be an unjust influence. It would be interfering with their free will and choice. And this they would not do. Free will and choice are God-given gifts. It is a basic universal law that should govern all interaction between souls. But unfortunately, this does not always happen. But then the transgenders say, neither do all humans respect their traffic laws. So, but basically, so all of this information they have, I don't have. I'm just an ordinary Joe. All that information is impossible for me. I don't have that on Earth. I talked to scientists. I read all your UFO books. It's not there. It's in the spiritual realm. And so I was lucky enough, through the advice of this friend of mine, to contact the transgenders, and I've been talking to them for the last 12 years. That is where all of the information comes from.
All right, let's go to Brian in Mesa, Arizona, west of the Rockies. Go ahead, Brian.
Hi, George. Thank you for having me.
Sure thing.
My question is for Stanley. I was just curious, when you go on the spiritual journeys, are you under the influence of any external forces, like any type of devices or technologies or even hallucinogenics for that matter? And I noticed you use the term did you say transgenders?
Transcenders.
Senders.
Transcenders, okay.
Senders.
If you could explain exactly what that terminology means for me, that'd be great.
If I could explain what?
What that means. The transcenders.
Transcenders?
Yeah.
Transcenders are beings just like you and I. They're souls. Like when you die, you don't die, but when you cross over, let's call it die if you wish, because that's the term we use, you get in the spiritual realm, you're a soul. You don't have a physical body, but you still exist. And you're not somebody else. You're still there with all you remember, not only your past life, you'll remember some of your previous lives, but the more developed the souls are, they will have a tendency, of course, to congregate together, which only makes sense. Now, this transgender group consists of 43,000 very old souls with a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience. And for one thing, say they don't only come from the third or fourth dimension. They come from the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, and the ninth. The ninth is the highest dimension. At the ninth dimension, they can then become what is known co-creators in God's creation. They become virtually part of God. And some of them decided to go back and join the transgender group. And I asked about that. I thought that was very, very strange. These souls could have been working with God in creating new universes, whatever it was. Why did they do that? And they said, so the soul lives on forever. It is eternal. So there's no such thing as time. So why not? And I thought, yes, true enough. But you've got to understand that, and let's get away from all. And I tell people, Look, I've studied religion at the university. I've studied philosophy and this sort of thing, and I've been doing it ever since. And I was caught under the myths of religion for all of my life until I divested myself of these myths and accept the reality that, that there is a spiritual world out there, and that's what we return to, and that reincarnation is a fact. That's what Christ taught, although the Bible doesn't teach that. But I want to tell you something to the gentleman who just called from Mesa. I tell people who want to dispute this thing with me, I said, look, I've read thousands of books. I've studied this matter. And I'm telling you that I'd only recommend 2 books for you to read. That's all, just 2 books. Who Wrote the Bible by Richard Elliott Friedman, dealing with the Old Testament, and Misquoting Jesus by Bart Ehrman, E-H-R-M-E-N. He's a professor and a biblical scholar, I think, in North Carolina. You read these 2 books and it will change your world forever. And then read my book, Challenge to Change, to give you the reality of the alien existence.
All right, let's go to Schuyler, Nebraska. We'll get 1 or 2 more calls in. Here, go ahead, Raj.
Oh, hey, thanks, George. Thanks for the opportunity and also for your program.
Sure thing.
I just want to say, I think this guy is fascinating, and I really don't think Coast to Coast is giving him justice. You guys need to get him on for a full show. Please bring him back soon.
We shall.
Very, very soon. Also, I can't agree, though, that, I don't misunderstand. I believe there are beings from somewhere. I am not a non-believer in that aspect, but I can't agree with it being a UFO. I don't know what it was, but I can't believe it was a UFO over New York. Come on. Post 9/11, our military would have been all over it.
What do you think? Stanley, you were with NORAD. I won't get into the 9/11 and the situation with NORAD there, but why didn't they send any flyer jets up there?
That is a good question, George. They knew very well they were there because, the radar will track anything up there in the sky for at least, all over the continental United States and Canada. There's no aircraft that moves unless there were a VFR, visual flight under VFR, visual flight.
Even if it was a balloon, they'd send something up there to look at it, don't you think?
No, they don't bother. And this thing about the balloons is absolute hogwash.
Well, I agree, but you don't know it's a balloon until you go up there.
But the thing is, though, a balloon like this, the kids were playing with, because of the size and the type of gas we're using, they probably go up to about 100, 200 feet and they float away. But they wouldn't rise to about 20, 25,000 feet and then fly around in formation, disappear and reappear, and this sort of thing. So why I'll tell you, George, I don't bother with these people anymore. The naysayers and the swamp gas people, I just don't bother with them anymore.
But Roger's right. Why didn't NORAD send any planes up there?
Well, that is a good question.
if you were there,
that's right. They knew very well that these, Andy, they knew they were there. Of course they knew they were there. And but the thing is that they weren't moving.
No, they weren't moving at all. Stanley, Roger is right. We got to get you back for more time when time permits. Stanley Fulham, his book, Challenges of Change, remarkable. Up next, David Pitkin. Stanley was a breaking news story. David Pitkin, the scheduled guest, New England Ghosts. That's next.